Joining us is retired four-star Army General Barry McCaffrey. He is an MSNBC military analyst. Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent at the New York Times and NBC News political analyst. And Elise Labott, author of Cosmopolitics on Substack and a professor at American University's School of International Service. So, General, what do you make of this overnight strike on Iran?
Well, I think this morning is a great sense of relief among regional Arab leaders to include the Iranians and the Israelis, and certainly the Biden administration, which has been devoted to trying to de-escalate and create conditions of peace in this struggle. I'm astonished that the Iranians have been able to ignore the foreign minister's belligerent statements yesterday, not just the Revolutionary Guard, that they would respond with overwhelming power to any Israeli attack. So I guess, as General Twitty said earlier today, this is now a new normal. Very unstable, great tension in which both countries presume the other is capable of directly striking them. The Iranians have a massive capability in missiles, almost 3,000. They have not expended. And the Israeli Air Force, with the F-35 stealth fighter, can clearly get into any strategic target in Israel they choose to, in Iran they choose to attack. So I think we've dodged a bullet for the time being, but it's a very unstable situation.
So, General, interesting what you were talking about how it seems as though, as of right now, the Iranian military or the commanders are ignoring what the foreign minister of their own regime said. Is this, as Raf was saying, nothing happens in a vacuum, is this their decision to not act, or is it maybe the possibility that they may be acting in a short period of time?
Well, of course, that's a concern. There's been no definitive statement by the Iranians that they're not going to respond in any way at any time to this. But I think for now it looks like we're safe because the capabilities of Iran are significant, but the threat from Hezbollah, a proxy for Iran, is simply enormous. It alone would threaten the existence of Israel. We keep using the number 150,000 some odd rockets, ground force of over 100,000 fighters. So had Iran triggered Hezbollah to attack in the north, we would have seen a massive regional war breakout. So good news. Secretary Blinken has been relentless in trying to form a coalition of the Sunni Arab nations in particular to say, stick together, don't allow the Shiite Iranian regime to drag you into a regional war. This is very dicey stuff. And, at the end of the day, you got to go back that the Israeli attack that killed 12 people in the Iranian embassy in Damascus and killed 7 some odd senior members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, including a senior Quds Force commander, in retrospect, was clearly a provocative attack that didn't diminish Iran's ability to threaten Israel, but did goad them into responding with this over-the-top 350 some odd missile attack on Israel. So a lot of mistaken judgments are happening on both sides of this equation.
Yeah, and Peter, as a general was saying, we just heard Secretary of State Antony Blinken recently say that the United States was not involved in this strike. NBC News has learned Israeli officials did notify the U.S. that a response was coming. What do you think this says about the relationship between the United States and Israel?
Well, of course, it's a complicated relationship right now because on the one hand, the Biden administration has been very unhappy with Prime Minister Netanyahu's government's conduct of the war in Gaza. The president, and just recently, 2 weeks ago, even threatened to change U.S. policy toward Israel if Netanyahu's government didn't do more to ease the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and restrict military activity so they didn't hurt civilians in the same dimensions that they have. But at the same time, the president has vowed ironclad, that's his word, ironclad support for Israel against Iran. Now, the result we have right here may be, as sort of the general just talked about, a result that everybody can live with. Nothing great, maybe nothing satisfying in the long term, but Israel gets to say that it did strike back. Iran gets to say that it didn't get hurt. The United States gets to say that we avoided the regional war that the president has been worried about so much since October 7th. But again, as General McCaffrey said, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a long-term strategy for stability by any stretch, and anything could still happen in the next 24 to 48 hours if we're not reading the signals right.
Yeah, Lisa, and let's talk about those signals, because it does very clearly there's a new status quo, right, in the Middle East as far as Iran and Israel is concerned. What do you think the strike was meant to show? And this new status quo, is it even more dangerous than it was before?
I think it's a lot more dangerous, Jose. I mean, as the general was saying, Iran escalated in a way on that April 1st attack. And so Iran felt that it needed to escalate. It could have responded with 20 or 30 missiles. Instead, it escalated with 300 and said, OK, you want to play? Let's play. And so then, the question was Israel going to respond in kind? Or was it going to say to Iran, listen, we can hit it deep inside your territory. We know where your nuclear facilities were. That wasn't the target. But this is a very strategic military area, not just that air base, but the missiles that Iran uses to hit Israel are in that vicinity. And so a very strategic place that they hit, but they didn't hit it with great force. They obviously didn't go after the nuclear facilities. So now Israel is saying, okay, we can come in. We used about 1/10 of the munitions that you used. But if you want to escalate, you know that we can do a lot more damage. So I think on both sides, message sent, message received. And I think as we've been hearing, we might go back to this shadow war. But with this new kind of status quo that I think everybody in the international community was very concerned about, but clearly neither Israel nor Iran wants that. I don't think it's over entirely. I think we could see some activity by the proxies, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's the Houthis. It might be a lower level. It might not be a spectacular attack. But I think both sides are, they're not, this isn't a détente, let's be honest. And so I think now for Benjamin Netanyahu, is he going to squander the international support that he's had? Or is he going to go into Rafah now, which I think a lot of people expect that he will. And that would put more pressure on Iranian proxies to maybe respond. And so it's certainly, we're out of the woods for maybe the next, as Peter and the general was saying, 24 to 48 hours, but we're in for a rocky few months.
Yeah, detente may be just a matter of hours, right? Well, General Barry McCaffrey, Peter Baker, and Elise Labott, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.